You'll definitely want to hear what Dr. John Church has to say about using drones on ranches. From tagging and tracing livestock to detailed mapping and weed management, and many other applications besides. Dr. Church sees drones as a tool that can really help ranches save costs and produce happier and healthier livestock. An associate professor at Thompson Rivers University, John Church has been able to dive into a wide range of fascinating, cutting edge research. He's a cattle research chair, has a wealth of knowledge in beef cattle welfare, range management, and greenhouse gas emissions. But tonight, our main focus will be on his many innovations in sustainability, including the use of drones.
So yeah, thank you very much. I'm really passionate about not just drones, but this is actually a picture of my grandfather. So I'm lucky to be the fifth generation in my family probably to have cattle. This is a picture from 1911, and I like to think, what do you think about this grandson, great grandson, I guess, and his flying machines? Um, uh, I've moved on from horses to electric motorcycles, but people have also asked me about the Cybertruck. And I said, if I were in grade 12, what do I think about it? I ordered mine 15 minutes after I saw it presentation from Elon Musk. Now I know ranchers, it's polarizing, but I say it this way: when I was in grade 12 and somebody said, I'm going to give you a Lamborghini to drive, oh, by the way, we're going to make it bulletproof, dent proof. We're going to give it pneumatic air suspension. It can outrun the Porsche Carrera, outpull the F-150 up a hill, 800-kilometer range, no more gas again ever. And I said, well, how much? What do you want? A quarter million? Half a million? No, 59,000, which is more. Actually, the Cybertruck is going to be less than what we're paying for gas trucks now. So I'll let that sink in. Uh, like I said, I started way back in 2013. Uh, we've come a long ways, and I'm excited. This is my latest master student, Stephen Kega, and he just finished his master's at April. And they really he's quite a handsome lad. And I think part of the Black Lives Movement, TRU's splashing his image everywhere. So I go to the Kelowna airport. I go to the airport in Calgary. I'm driving to Sorrento, and I'm seeing them on billboards everywhere. But like I said, this is some of the early drone work I had. This is an Inspire 2 with a multispectral camera, and we did lots of the mapping, so I won't get into it like others spoke about. The very first really expensive drone I had was 34,000, and I want that to sink in just so we can see how affordable drones have become. And it could only fly for 7 minutes. But I wanted to prove the concept that what we had done is, could we get a drone to autonomously detect cows? And we could. At this many pixels, at this temperature, that's a cow. We had an onboard Raspberry Pi. Because my mission is to not only be able to find lost cows, I think we can actually move beyond that to knowing not only find lost cows, know where they are at all times, but also even know important things like if they're being attacked by wolves. I'm going to show you how I envision or plan that we can do that in the future. This is what you see when you're looking down at your phone. And I also argue, it's often better to use something like this, a headset or what have you. And even then, this is from a few years ago. This was a Phantom 4 drone. You can see here down at the bottom, we were getting 4 kilometers. So the big thing with DJI, that what they've been able to crack is long range video transmission cheaply. The I wouldn't spend my money. This is my Mavic Mini, and the next one I buy will be a Mini too, because it only transmits a couple of kilometers. But the Mavic Mini 2, which actually I have it in the farm in Beaverdale, because they're using it, it'll do 10 kilometers, right? My student Justin, he finished and did his master's degree looking at heat stress and also looking at meloxicam with cows. Now, somebody mentioned, the cows don't like it, but it's absolutely depends on how you use it. So if you're going to chase cows with it, yeah, they're not going to be really wild about it. If you allow them time to get used to it, and this is an example of Justin's work, if you give them time where you start the first day at 40 meters, then you come in at 30, they're not used to being attacked by aerial predators. You can actually get it down like we are in this video. We can get it down to 8 meters. And this was a case of we were wanting to basically just test uh, calves that were castrated with or without meloxicam, and we were counting tail flicks and whether they're looking over their flanks. Well, at this point, we're only about maybe 10 meters above, so it all depends on how you use it as a tool. Justin was also using Agisoft software and collecting still images from videos and then mapping, but mapping with the cattle on the landscape. And then we could actually measure the distance between calves and their dams. And what we found, the cows, and what we found is that cows that got meloxicam would get up quicker and they would go out farther and get up moving faster than cows that didn't get meloxicam. And that's the reason why, big ranchers, it's a big bill, but that's why people like Phil Bragg at Douglas Lake Cattle Company are using meloxicam on these cows. To my knowledge, this was actually the first time a drone saved an animal. This is a producer that had came and heard a talk that I'd give in Montana, and he went home to Paradise, Saskatchewan, and bought a drone for himself. He spent a couple $1,000s, and he was a bison producer. And you can see here, there's some coyotes in the photo, and there's this cow all by himself. And he noticed that he had a cow way off in the away from the herd. And you see this water here. There was a tremendous amount of flooding, so he couldn't get over to check that cow. But he said, well, I'm going to fire up my drone, and because I think there's something brown down at her feet. Well, he flew down there and he saw there was actually a calf that had fallen down the badger hole, and the coyotes were actually hanging out because no self-respecting bison would, even think twice about running off a coyote. But what they were waiting is for the calf to die and then get a free meal. So it was date night in Saskatchewan. They fired up the big John Deere green and the front end loader. They kind of chased the cow off. He jumped out, grabbed her by the front feet, pulled her out. Told me when he first saw her, he thought her back legs were paralyzed, but in about 20 minutes, it started to loosen up and she was walking normal again. So she'd probably been there quite a while. But without the drone, he would have never seen it. So just the power of that it allows you to extend your vision, right? And then again, my good bud at the general manager, Phil Bragg, I introduced them to the drones. It's now a part of their regular operation. And he said to me, these drones don't do what I thought they could, but what they can do is really remarkable. Now I'm going to date myself. When I was a kid, 1976, right? And Johnny was 7 years old, and the hottest, well, I actually think it was 1974, even the hottest show on television was the $6 Million Man. I show that to my students, and they say, the $6 Million what? And he said, well, he was like a cyborg. He was bionic. Oh, you mean the guy from Justice League? No, no. Well, yeah, okay. I even had a little doll, and he had an eye. And being the nerd I am, I wanted to find out what kind of magnifying power did he really have. Back in 1974, it was 20 times optical zoom. Well, I have an M600 and I have a Z30 camera on it, and it flies. And I have on this camera 180 times optical zoom. And I'm going to show you what that means, 180 times optical zoom. So this is one of my postdocs flying a drone, and he's about 1.5 kilometers away, and he was on full zoom. So zoom back out. And you can see just incredible. And reading cattle ear tags, for example, is no problem with one of these drones. So here's an example of a cow, a bull actually. This is at Douglas Lake Ranch, and the horn is curved down, so it was in the way. But even with that, we could still quite easily see that this tag is 26 is tag 26. Now this cow isn't bothered by the drone, this bull, sorry. And I'll zoom out and I'll show you why here. Let me see if I can zoom out where the drone was. There we go. Is the video working okay? Is it coming through?
Just great.
Oh, great. So you can see at this height, nobody cares, right? They don't even notice that when you're at 70 meters, 100 meters, and then you can switch to thermal. And then this is what you would see on your phone or on your heads up display. You see what the drone sees. Now, this is a group of cattle that actually out in Barnhart Vale, and we had used the drone to chase them and to round them up. But so unlike the other cattle that you had seen before, now I prefer to use the drones just to observe them rather than rounding them out, because if you start rounding them up with it, then they think they have to run. But I've worked with people in Oregon where, they're deep crevasses and they don't want to go in there with horses. So then they're quite willing to use drones. So it's think of the drones, they're just a tool and then how you use it. But yeah, drones can make it tough to see when the cows start going into the trees. But you can see here that even with the trees, and actually the conifers give off a surprising amount of heat. But you can, when you switch to a thermal palette, this was at dusk. It makes it a lot easier to see cows when you're going to try and find them. So this was what I thought was my dream setup, where I could have a thermal camera, and as and it was messy, right? And the Z30 and heavy, and then in just late last year, they came up with this baby, and this is my pride and joy. This is the M300, and it's got an integrated drone. And don't spend 40,000 on the fixed wing. This drone can do anything that thing can do. It's way more flexible, and it gives you like a heads up display. It's actually not that hard to fly, but it's like you feel like you're an Air Force pilot when you're flying it. But it's got whomping big batteries, and I get 45 minutes of flight time off two of these batteries at a time, and I just get 8 batteries. And I want to show you, if you think it's impressive what we can do with cows. Let me show you a real world example of what we did with burrowing owls with the Upper Nicola band. So I got a panicked call from the people looking after their of burrowing owls, because they were terrified they're going to start migrating every day and we can't catch them. And this is where they were headed last fall. They were going to California, and their nesting sites are gone. It was just an inferno, right? And you can see the entire province, or sorry, the entire state was 3.5 million acres. Like, that's a size 3 times bigger than Douglas Lake Ranch, burned up. So they had been out there with kites, because if you go out on foot, they fly away. So he said, could we use your drones? Do you think if you came with your drones, what we need you to do is, if you can pretend you're a hawk, we could scare them down the hole. Oh, well, yeah. I mean, she asked me, dumb questions. Can you control where the drone goes? Well, yeah, of course. But what I did is I brought the M300 and then my Mavic 2 Advanced, and the reason I'm going to show this is they had mapped out all the GPS burrows. I said, okay, where's the first burrow? And I could put the GPS code in and send it right there. And and then with the other drone, my Mavic, it's got a speaker on top, the Mavic 2 or Enterprise Zoom. And we had a speaker on top, and I recorded actually a sound of a red-tailed hawk, and that's their natural predator. And I could use the M300 to scout to see if they're at the burrow. And the zoom, 200 times optical zoom, just like I showed you, all you see is on your iPhone is the baby burrow, the owl. And yeah, we chased them down into the holes, and we now have 8 burrowing owls that are hanging out at Kamloops Wildlife Park. And this one in particular was a special one called Wonder Woman, because she had lost her mate but raised 18 chicks by herself, and she had made the trip twice. And there's no doubt about it that, like, some people almost consider burrowing owls close to extinct. Uh, but she didn't like it. But and I've got some really cool video footage that I don't have time to show, but actually it was like Top Gun and actually I had my student Robert flying it, not myself, because his 25-year-old reflexes are a lot faster than mine. But this is just an example of how we can use drones. Well, the successor to this drone that I'm using is this one. This is the Mavic 2 Enterprise dual thermal. So not only you have dual thermal, but you have 30 times optical zoom. It's got a GPS mapping module on it, so you can connect it to a ground station, and you can get near centimeter accuracy. Now, the big question is, will it have multispectral payloads and stuff for mapping? Well, I think so, but I really think I would love to get my hands on this. For most people, I think just to get started. Now, if you buy a Fly More Cat combo, lots of extra batteries and stuff. But if you get this Mini 2, which is the successor to this, it's a hell of a drone. And it's way more stable. This one is really good, but this one is a way more stable. Now I'm going to show you the showstopper, because it was my dream to use drones to find missing cattle in the fall and bring them home. And I have done that. I've done that for Jeff Brazier in Golden. You know, he had 2 cows and 2 heifers that wouldn't come home, and he couldn't find them, and they'd been looking for her for 2 weeks. And he said, well, let's put this to the test. Let's see how good this really is. We found them in 15 minutes. But some of you might have been reading this past winter. It was in Canadian Cattlemen. They've got new ear tags coming. And what I had been trying to do is get a long range RFID tag that I could put on a cow. And I'm sad to say I couldn't get it to work. I could get the tags to work, but my range sucked, retention sucked. And if they went into the trees more than about 100 yards, I'd lose them, because RFID doesn't go through tree very well. But these are satellite ear tags from Australia, satellite GPS tags. They've got a double prong system. So the manufacturers said they don't fall out, period. Retention isn't a problem with the double prong. And so you put these in the ear of the cow and you forget about it, right? But because it's going up to the Global Link satellite, range isn't an issue. Now I can look on my cell phone and see, where is cow 48? Oh, here's her GPS location. I can look at her on a map. If she hasn't moved in, let's say, 6 hours or 24 hours, whatever rule you want, well, rather than go and find her first, I could dispatch my drone autonomously, because those new drones I'm showing you, the M300 and the Mavic 2 Advanced, they fly on waypoints, GPS waypoints. I've also working with another company in Alberta who's developed a Rumen Bolus. So those that are convinced, you know, I don't care, these ear tags will fall out. Like there are some real hardcore folks that say, forget it. Well, we've come up with a Rumen Bolus. And these are some of my speckled park bulls. I tested these Rumen Boluses, and they seem to work, but I want to give them a range test this fall. And I'm getting up to 14 kilometers. And so what you do is you put it down their throat, and it stays in their reticulum. So it goes from the rumen to their second chamber, the reticulum, but it can't go past the abomasum. And this is actually, I had a Scottish Highland bull, and I was trying to put the bolus in and get him in the chute, but he got me. So this is my father used to tell this joke when around the rodeo crowd, that if you play with the bull long enough, eventually you get the horn. So actually, after this experience, I'm still messing around with the double hair coat, but I decided, you know what, I'm not going to use Highlands anymore. I'm going to move to Galloways for that reason, right? But here you can see me putting in the tag, and I can get temperature, and I can actually get body temperature. So I think I can detect estrus or whether they're sick. But you know, marrying the two technologies together, I think is really the future. And I really think that, you know, don't make the mistake that I did in the early days, thinking I need one drone for mapping, one drone to manage my herd. I really think you can do it all. Now, $1,000, you know, most folks can kind of stomach that. If you want to move into something very sophisticated with the ear tags, that's going to be a little more, no doubt about it. I'm asking I'm thinking I could do it for about 8,000. Have a drone and satellite ear tags on, let's say, 50 cows. But they've got a 3-axis accelerometer on the chip, so they can measure general activity. So if the chips start shaking like crazy, which happens when they start being attacked by a wolf pack, imagine you would get a text alert on your phone, and now you don't even, and it could be dark, it doesn't matter. I can send the drone out to that location. Now, I'm really fortunate this past winter. They got new wolves at the BC Wildlife Park, and a couple grizzly bears that were a going concern, and asked the park, now that while it's closed over the winter and they can't have people because of COVID, could I fly the wildlife? And he said, yeah, sure. I don't see why not. The bears are bored anyways. What I've discovered is, you think cows don't like drones. Wolves, grizzly bears, black bears, cougars, they hate drones. So I'm convinced if your ear tag starts going nuts, you could quickly get your drone out there, and you just have to lower it down. And I kid you not, I think the grizzly bear, the wolf, the cougar, they're going to bug out. So you could say, yeah, it's expensive, but let's go ask Brian Kersey in Canal Flats. I think I think he had to leave the province. I'm not sure, but he was our president, but he lost over 50 calves. But I think to myself, if I'd had this tech, maybe we wouldn't have had that. But with that, I'm going to wrap up so there's time for the other speaker, and I'll hang out for questions after.
Thanks so much, John.
Over to you, Andrew.
That's inspiring.
Let's have a field day. Let's have a field day. Let's all get vaccinated. We're supposed to be vaccinated June and July. I see there's a passionate group here. Let's get a field day together in the fall.
I love it. I think that's a great idea. Field day for drones, and we can check out all of your the fancy equipment. I'll eat a bolus and see if you can track me.
Sure. Or put an ear tag, or just an ear tag in your pocket. We won't, or you can put it in your pocket.
Okay.
We won't make you.
All right.
You don't have to swallow it.